welcome. My name is Melissa Brayden, and I am your moderator today for our Follow Your Heart reading panel. And we're super happy you're here. I'm in Texas, where apparently a huge storm is coming, so everything is a little frenzied, and everyone is headed out to the grocery store because in Texas we don't know how to deal with cold weather, which is super fun. But I would like to go ahead and encourage you to use the chat bar. One thing I've noticed is that when you're sending a message on the chat bar, pay attention to who you're sending it to, because right now it tells me I would send it to the panelists only. But if you want everyone to see it, go ahead and just change that to everyone. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn to our panelists and let them tell you a little bit about themselves. And I'm going to start with Missouri Vaun.
Hello, I should say good morning. It's here on the West Coast, but my name is Missouri Vaun, and I am going to be reading today from a book called Forever's Promise. It's a historical romance. So thank you for joining and for hosting.
Awesome. Well, we're happy that you're here. Gunn, could you introduce yourself? I think you're on mute. There you go. You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
Very good. Okay. I'm Brooke, and I write romance and science fiction and an occasional paranormal for bold strokes. And I've just had my 31st book out. So I'm one with a furniture over at bold strokes. And I live in Sweden and with my dogs. And I apologize again in advance if my dog is causing racket. I'll try and keep her quiet.
I think dogs are welcome, and congratulations on number 31. That's amazing.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. Nan, would you say hello to the people?
Hi to the people. I'm Nan Campbell, and I'm in New York City, and I have written, this is my third book with Bold Strokes Books, with anybody's books. It's called Like They Do in the Movies.
I love that title. I've been admiring it, and I look forward to your reading today as well.
Thank you.
And yes, Anna, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, Melissa. So I'm Anna Larner. I'm over here in the UK. And as I was saying, I was in the settings panel a moment ago, and I said I live in Leicester, and I said it's best known for having a king buried underneath a car park. That's how we identify. And so I've written 4 contemporary lesbian romance novels. Highland Fling was my debut, and its sequel, Highland Whirl, both set in the beautiful, stunning Highlands of Scotland. Highland Fling was an age gap romance, and Highland Whirl is a feisty opposites attract romance. And I've got Love's Portrait. I always describe it as my beautiful book. For some reason, it has a beautiful book feeling. And that's a work-paced romance, a dual timeline romance, which is lovely. So we've got history intermingling with a contemporary story, and that's set in the passionate art world. And then most recently, I'll be reading as well from this is Invisible, and that again, it's set in Leicester, and it's a new adult contemporary romance, and it tells the story of the first love between costume shop assistant Violet Unwin and the medical school dropout Phoebe Frink, and it's lots of fun. So that's me.
Oh, we look forward to that reading. Nice to meet you. Nice to have you here as well. And Kit, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Kit Meredith, they, them. I'm a new author with Bold Strokes, so the opposite to Gunn. I had my first book out in September, which I'm going to be reading from today. And I'm writing polyamorous contemporary romance. And I'm in England, where it is pretty much already dark. So the opposite end of the day.
It's interesting. We're all in different parts of the world, which is fantastic that we're coming together on this little computer screen. I think it's just me left, and my name is Melissa Brayden. I write contemporary romance that I hope is fun and flirty. I think I'm on book 25 at this point, and today, when it's my turn, I'll be reading from You Had Me at Merlot, which is out in February. So just in a couple of weeks, I'm very excited by that. And so I think at this point, we will turn to our readings. We're going to start with Missouri Vaun. And so we're going to duck out of here for a second. We're going to give the stage to Missouri.
The book I'm reading from, it's set in Kansas in 1850, and it focuses on 2 characters, Charlotte and Wes. Wes dressed as a man to travel west and stake a claim with her brother, but then her brother's killed in an accident, leaving her alone on this huge claim. It's about 160 acres that she has to manage. And Charlotte stumbles upon Wes's farm after her stagecoach is attacked and she's left for dead. And I'm going to read a short section that comes after they've met and after Charlotte finds out Wes's secret, which is that she is a woman dressed as a man. And Wes is showing her around the claim. There were long swaths of water between the raised rows of green sprigs. The water reflected the clouds above as if the ground was transparent in the narrow puddles, and you were looking at something from beneath rather than above. The air was heavy with the scent of dampness. When Charlotte glanced back, Wes seemed sad all of a sudden. Clyde is buried over there under the cottonwoods. She pointed. Do you mind if we walk to his grave? Charlotte hadn't even thought to ask before now and considered maybe it would do Wes some good. Grieving was different for everyone and couldn't be rushed. Wes was still in the midst of it. Wes nodded and they started walking in the direction. Charlotte tried to keep up, but the heels of her shoes kept sinking in the soft, wet ground, as did her long skirts. At one point, she thought she might lose her shoe completely until Wes circled back to assist. She offered Charlotte her hand and then bent down to free her foot from the mud. Wes's hand was warm and strong, and Charlotte wouldn't have minded holding it for longer, but Wes released her as soon as they began walking again. If there was any friendly comfort in their brief contact, it seemed that Charlotte was the only one who'd noticed it or welcomed it. The grave was nothing more than a mound of dark earth surrounded by prairie grass. There was no marker, but the nearby tree would be a sentinel, and the sound of the creek was pleasing. This was as good a place as any to rest. Wes stood quietly and watched Charlotte as she took everything in. Charlotte stared at the grave for a long time and then up at the tree. Then she closed her eyes as if she were meditating on something. It was odd. It was odd to stand at the graveside with someone else. Until today, there'd been no other mourners except herself. It was strange to think that somebody's whole existence could just cease to be. And that was it, nothingness. All you hoped for, all you felt, buried in the ground, dust to dust, as the good book said. She'd lost herself in thought and didn't realize Charlotte was studying her until she spoke. I still think we could help one another. Charlotte held her shawl with one hand and brushed a loose strand of hair from her face with the other. What do you mean? Wes didn't see how Charlotte could help her, but she was willing to hear her out. We're both women who were willing to venture far to live an independent life. We could still do that. We could work together for that common goal. Well, I don't want to live the way I used to. Wes wasn't going back to her old habit of dressing. She was used to making her own way now, and she wouldn't settle for less. I don't want my former life either. Charlotte paused as if she was having a hard time finding the right words for something. She looked toward the creek and then back at Wes. I could stay here with you, and you could be who you are now. I don't want you to change. No one would have to know but us. Are you saying? I'm saying we could marry and we could work this place together. I meant it when I said you need help. You can't do everything by yourself, and I can't either. And I certainly can't go back to St. Louis, not like this. We could help each other, Wes. How can we get married? The very thought of it upended Wes's stomach. It was one thing to live as a man. It seemed quite another thing to involve a whole other person in the charade. As far as what people see, you are a man and I'm a woman. Charlotte's unwavering gaze almost made Wes believe it could work. I was romanced, then abandoned, and now I'm almost certainly pregnant. I can't go back to the life I had before. You're a woman who has taken on the life of a man to fulfill a dream of independence. Working together, we can protect each other's secrets and have a life that we both want. Well, working a farm like this, building it from nothing, it's not easy. Was she actually considering what Charlotte was proposing? Maybe she was. Could this be the glimmer of light at the end of a very long, dark tunnel? I'm not afraid of hard work. Charlotte seemed determined. Are you sure about this? I think I am, Charlotte smiled. But if you want to sleep on it, I understand. Wes nodded and looked at the ground as they walked back across the field. She wasn't sure what to say or even if this entire idea was too good to be true. Could she trust Charlotte, an outsider and someone she'd barely just met? Wes needed time to think. She'd lingered at the creek with the excuse of clearing storm debris and sent Charlotte back to the house, but the truth was, she just needed a little bit of space. The sun was dropping below the horizon. The last threads of daylight remained, drawing her attention to the sunset. Maybe God did care after all. Maybe God hadn't forsaken her despite her lack of attention to matters of faith. Charlotte had arrived just when Wes needed her most. That had to mean something. Charlotte's suggestion that they could help each other was settling into a comfortable spot inside her head. Out here on the edge of the world, who would know besides the two of them?
It's fantastic. Thank you so much for that. It was such an interesting scene too, because we see them making these plans together, and now I want to pick it up and see what's going to happen next. So very much appreciate that page, and we're going to move on now to Gunn Brooke, who will be reading for us.
Thank you. I'm going to read from my latest romance called Limelight, and it takes place in the talent show world. And this is the first time that Palmer Elliston, who's one of the coaches, a very reluctant coach, she meets Liberty Bell, who is a very hopeful performer who this is do or die for her. She needs to win this competition. And so also in this scene is Noelle and Helena, who some readers might have read about in Fierce Overture. So they make a bit of a cameo in this book. Palmer had to lean back in her desk chair as Liberty Bell's voice washed over her in a way that overpowered her senses. If she had ever heard a voice like this, a mesmerizing blend of light, breathy, husky, and strong, she would have recalled it. Libby used a soft yet strong tone in the verses, then let more force through during the chorus. Some of her notes were devastatingly clear and indeed reminded Palmer of a crystal bell. Libby sat very still as she sang, but toward the last chorus, she got up and changed gears, pushing her voice even further. The audience had been quiet until now, but as if on cue, they rose and swayed, waving flashlights from their cell phones behind the coaches. Palmer glanced at Helena, who sat on the other side of Noelle. Meeting her gaze, Helena nodded discreetly. Noelle instead smiled broadly, which was redundant, as Palmer knew that the girl with a slightly ridiculous name had been an obvious choice for Limelight. The applause and shouts after Libby finished were loud enough to induce tinnitus. Palmer didn't care what the producers might think and covered her ears with her fingertips. Whoa, Noelle laughed and got to her feet, applauding. Libby. Libby shook her head and gestured to her ears, clearly unable to hear Noelle over the audience's noise. I know, right? Noelle turned to the audience and laughed. They sure love her. Eventually, the excited crowd calmed down and Libby stood at the edge of the stage again. Her posture was less rigid and her eyes sparkled as she looked at Noelle, who slapped both palms against the desk. Your voice is amazing. I could give you a list as long as my hair, why I think so, but to keep it short, your tone, your rasp, and the way you let your audience in, Libby, you're going to be dangerous in this competition. It's time for Libby to find out who her coach is, Helena said. Palmer, say hello to your third and final contestant. I must say I envy you. You'll have fun mentoring Libby, that's for sure. Palmer had already known that she would be the one mentoring Libby, but nothing could have prepared her for such a once-in-a-decade talent. Looking back at Libby now, Palmer returned to reality with a thump, when she saw barely concealed hesitation, even disappointment on Libby's face. No doubt she had hoped for the much more exuberant and famous Noelle. Palmer's blood cooled, which made her shudder. I look forward to collaborating with you, Libby, Palmer said, forcing herself to sound polite. but she realized too late that she might be coming off as indifferent. Your voice is unique, which I hope will be enough to keep you in the competition. The expression in Libby's eyes grew opaque, and her smile didn't show in her light gray irises. Instead, they seemed deep like water until she switched her gaze over to Noelle and Helena. Huh, of course. Palmer shifted her hands until they were out of view under the glossy white desk and then clenched them hard. Surprisingly, Libby had exceeded any expectations she might have had of the contenders. Plus, she had stirred something in Palmer that had been dormant for the last 7 years. Yet it was clear that Libby was surprised to get the coach she wanted the least. Hardly remarkable. So much for the new beginnings that Helena and Noelle had sold Palmer on. And how ironic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gunn. You know me, I love a good performance romance. And when you add in the competition and then the mentor student, if you're like me, check out Limelight by Gunn Brooke. I appreciate that reading so much, Gunn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to hear how they do it in the movies, like they do it in the movies from Nan Campbell. If we can bring her up, because I'm ready.
Well, like Gunn, my book, like they do in the movies, includes a celebrity, but my celebrity is named Chelsea Cartwright, and she's an actor. So this scene is between her, Chelsea, and Fran, who is her assistant. When they arrived at the turnout, Chelsea said, "Bring the dress." And that's how Fran found herself standing at the top of Mulholland Drive with Chelsea's gown in her arms. The view was spectacular. It overlooked the lit-up grid of downtown and the entire Los Angeles basin. Chelsea's dress became the world's most expensive picnic blanket the moment she took it from Fran, spread its voluminous skirt, and sat down on it. She gazed out at the view. "I'm really disappointed." Fran knew she had to be talking about her role in the movie they had just watched. "I'm guessing they cut it down more than you were expecting?" "Butchered it," Chelsea spat. "Removed all the things that gave her dimension, a personality. I'm just the humorless shrew once again." "I'm sorry. I can't keep doing this, Fran. Something has to change. Maybe those executives are right. I should just bail out of acting and host a talk show." "There was nothing wrong with your performance. It was the plot that began to make less sense. The special effects took over and coherent storytelling just went out the window." 3 months of cowering at a tennis ball in front of a green screen. "I'm getting too old for this shit," Chelsea muttered. "You must not have seen what I saw back at In and Out. The way you had instantly made 100 new friends, how everyone you talked to felt special and seen, and didn't even notice when you cut the line." Chelsea laughed, seemingly in spite of the sour mood that had quickly descended over her. "It's my superpower." "It definitely is. And I don't mind people and their cameras if it's my choice. I chose to walk in there knowing full well that I was going to draw attention. And boy, did you draw attention. You have a gift, Chelsea. There are very few people who can do what you do." "What?" Chelsea snorted. "Move to the head of the line at a fast food joint? Get paid for being dinosaur food?" "Connect." Fran moved closer and took Chelsea's hand. It got her attention. "Since I started working for you, I've spent a lot of time watching you." "Yeah, that's kind of your job." "No." Fran was a little embarrassed, but she kept on. "I mean your performances. At this point, I've seen most of your filmography." She let go of Chelsea's hand and grabbed her phone. "Wait, I'll show you." She opened YouTube. "You don't have to show me anything. I was there. I know what I've done." Chelsea's voice was quiet. "I don't think you know how good you are." Fran searched up the clip she wanted, or maybe you've just forgotten. "I can guess what you're teeing up. The dinner scene from A Dynasty Less Than Sublime, right? All the tears and snot and carrying on won me the Oscar." "Wrong. A performance filled with emotional excess is always going to be showered with praise. Of course you were excellent, but there's something else I want to show you." Here, look. Fran played a short clip from Frankie's Fortune, an indie from several years earlier. It was from the point of view of an autistic 11-year-old boy, and the scene showed Chelsea sitting beside the young actor who played Frankie in the principal's office when he was about to be expelled. My first mom role. I can't believe you watched this. It sank like a stone at the box office and went straight to cable. Chelsea's voice was rueful. Where everyone has seen it. Fran shuffled closer and held the phone so Chelsea could watch. It's the kind of movie you put on when you're folding laundry or cooking dinner or whatever, but then you become entranced by the story and forget everything around you. And that's mostly because of your performance. Chelsea's snort was the definition of dubious. I'm serious. The kid is good, but you just blow me away here. Fran started the clip. The director was super smart. He must have done a close-up on this kid as he receives the news that he's getting the boot, but he went with the two-shot of you and him from across the principal's desk instead. She shut up and watched when the clip started. Both actors were silent. The scene was all about reacting. The kid didn't register much emotion as the principal droned on, but Chelsea's face revealed everything about this mother. It looked as if she was trying to keep her features frozen. The tough, defiant mom masking her feelings. But then came the anger, then frustration, grief, and finally despair rippling across her face. Chelsea showed so much while barely moving a muscle. The restraint, it was breathtaking. When Fran first saw it, she went back and watched the scene about 10 times. It was truly masterful. Even now, she couldn't take her eyes from the tiny screen. When she finally raised her head, she saw that Chelsea wasn't watching. She was staring at Fran, her eyes stormy. Before she knew what was happening, Chelsea invaded her personal space and kissed her on the lips, fast and hard and urgent, and then withdrew just as quickly. Thank you for seeing so much in me. Her voice betrayed an intense emotion that Fran couldn't identify. All she knew was that this kiss had only been a sip, and she wanted the whole bottle of wine.
Fantastic. I think we all want the whole bottle of wine, please. And I love a good surprise kissing scene. So thank you very much for supplying that for us. That book was Like They Do in the Movies by Nan Campbell. You can look in the chat bar for a link so you can check out the rest and get that full bottle of wine. All right, now we are skipping across the pond a little bit, and I want to invite Anna Larner to come and read. And I believe it's Anna Larner, let me say that correctly, to come and read for us.
Thank you. So as I mentioned before, I'll be reading from Invisible. A little sneak peek again there. Just a little bit more about Invisible. It's a magical story about the wonder of make-believe and of finding strength and inspiration in the brave rebel women from our past. It's also about the importance of found families and community, celebration of individuality, and perhaps most of all of hope over adversity. It is summed up with the real-life motto of my local Leicester suffragettes, always and always facing towards the light. With the theme of following your heart in mind, the scene I've chosen for you, Violet is full of thoughts of Phoebe and turns to the ghostly presence of her great-great-grandma, the suffragette by Unwin, for comfort and encouragement. We see Violet muster the courage to go for the first time to the Drag King bar, the Banana Bar, where she seeks out not only her girl, but her community and her true self. So here we go. Invisible. Violet stared up at the stars on her ceiling and imagined Phoebe staring up at hers. Phoebe had opened up to her and trusted her with the things she was struggling with. It had made Violet feel wanted and needed. She'd never dared dream that anyone would ever need her as Phoebe seemed to, or that anyone would look at her the way Phoebe did, almost as if she wanted more from her, like she wanted to be closer to her, closer than a friend. Or was she imagining it, hopelessly hoping again for the happiness belonging to others? And where on earth had she found the nerve to tell Phoebe that she lit up the room and that she was the loveliest person in the world? The words had rushed out of her as if her feelings were in such a hurry to come out into the open and be seen. It was a moment of unguarded impulse, yet Phoebe hadn't minded. Instead, she'd hugged her. "You're so cool, never forget that." That's what she'd said to her. Violet turned onto her side and pressed her pillow into her chest. She closed her eyes and called to mind the sensation of Phoebe in her arms. She could still feel the brush of her soft skin against her face and the warmth of her body pressed against hers. Could she tell that Violet didn't want to let go, and that she didn't want to be just friends? But what must Phoebe really think of her? She looked so shocked by the bareness of the flat. It was part pity, part horror, and complete amazement that anyone would live as she was doing. But then what else was she supposed to do? Where else was she supposed to go? With the emotions of the day crashing in upon her, Violet burst into tears. She cried out, "I don't know what to do." A creak in the hallway made her look towards the door. She sat up and swallowed down her tears to ask, "Vi?" The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of stillness and comfort. Was she here with her? Violet wiped at her tears. The words "always" and "always" facing toward the light found their way to Violet's lips. There was always light, wasn't there? And even when all seemed dark and unknown. The suffragettes must have despaired, but against the odds they won their fight. So will it be okay if I face towards the light? Which way is that? Thoughts of Phoebe came instantly to mind. You light up the room. Phoebe. She would accept Phoebe's invite to the banana on Wednesday. She'd occasionally pass the bar on her daily walk. The sign's image of a cute, happy banana waving a rainbow flag always made her smile. She liked that it seemed different from all the other places in the city. But as tempting as it was to just see what it was like, she never went in. Even though Violet knew she was different, she understood that she was not different cool, but different weird, different strange. If the time at school had taught Violet anything, then it was that. You can do this. Be brave. I'll go to the banana. Violet wasn't sure if I was still there, but it somehow made it real to say it aloud. She pulled her phone from her pocket and held it tightly. She read the message waiting for her. "Hey, Violet. This is my number. Hope to see you soon. Phoebe. Kiss." Violet stared at the kiss. Why were her hands shaking? It was just a courtesy sign of nothing more. How she wanted it to mean more. To mean I am sending you a kiss blown from my virtual lips to yours. This X marks where my heart aches with the hope of seeing you again. She hovered her finger over the box to reply. What would she say? She typed a hesitant, "Hi, this is Violet. See you at the banana bar 2:30 on Wednesday, kiss." She quickly pressed send before she had a chance to type it. Another creak in the hall made Violet turn to her door. "Good night then, Vi, and thank you." Violet lay back on her bed, and if she was not mistaken, the stars above her seemed to shine even brighter. Thank you.
Fantastic. I loved that. We're talking about following your heart, and you grabbed my heart with that particular reading. It was very poignant. Thank you so much, Anna. I'm going to turn now to Kit Meredith and invite Kit to return to us and do a reading.
So as I mentioned, I'm going to be reading from my book, An Independent Woman. As I mentioned, it's a polyamorous contemporary romance, but I've written it to be accessible and relatable for everyone, whether you're poly or know anything about it or not. So it's set around a care home for adults with learning disabilities where Rebecca works, and Alex's sister has been placed against her will. So this leaves lots of butting heads over her care, but when the two characters bump into each other at the local poly meet, the atmosphere was rather different. And so this scene comes not long after that. When Rebecca stepped out of the meeting room after handover, she was surprised to find Alex lurking in the corridor. She stopped in her tracks and let her colleagues flow past as they said their goodbyes and headed home after an uneventful shift. Or what she had thought was uneventful. It seemed Alex had something to say about it. She hadn't moved as the others went by and seemed to have her sights set on Rebecca. What now? It had looked like Rebecca might actually leave work on time, but as Alex met her eyes, that went out the window. She should tell her she'd clocked off already and to make an appointment for another day. But the slump to Alex's shoulders and the way she tucked her hands in her pockets made it seem like she wasn't getting ready for a fight this time. Maybe she wanted to apologise. It would be good to clear the air. Rebecca had been trying to avoid her since their fraught last meeting, but that wasn't a long-term solution. They needed to be able to be in the same room together, for Phoebe's sake. Well, that's what she told herself, as Alex gave her a sheepish, lopsided smile and moved towards her in the rapidly emptying corridor. Maybe an apology was too much to hope for, and she'd get a charm offensive instead, like at the pub. Would that be such a bad thing? She'd take that charismatic Alex over the cold defensive minder any day. Except she shouldn't be hanging out with that Alex at work. It had been hard not to be drawn in by her magnetism. Not that she'd really tried to resist, and she could be in danger of letting her professionalism slide. Are you rushing off home, or do you have a minute? Alex clearly knew she was supposed to be leaving and was giving her an out. Yet for some reason, she didn't take it. My shift's finished now, but I'm not in a rush if you needed something. Cool. They stood staring at each other for a moment, as if they were both waiting for the other to make their intentions clear. She must stay strong and not blurt out something just to relieve the tension. Her hands curled into claws. Is there somewhere we can chat? Privately. Alex's voice dipped at the added request. Rebecca felt her cheeks start to flush. She doesn't mean it like that. It was best they go somewhere, in case Alex said something to hint at their outside connection. She chewed her lip as she considered the options. The upstairs kitchen might be free, as it's usually just used for breaks. We can try there. She'd also have the option of busying herself making tea. Good plan. After you. Alex held out an arm, pointing towards the stairs. Should she tell anyone she was staying on and where they were going? Maybe she should, but she hadn't signed out yet, and she was intrigued to hear what Alex had to say to her that required a private space. If she said anything, someone else might offer to take over or question their intentions. It was best no one looked at those too hard, including her. She took Alex's cue and headed up. The kitchen was, thankfully, empty. Alex followed her in and stood by the round table as if waiting for permission to sit. Tea, Rebecca offered. Now they were in the room alone together, she definitely needed something to distract her from the full draw of Alex's presence. If you're having one, I don't want to keep you too long, Alex said, but seemed to take it as a cue to get settled and took a seat. So, what was it you wanted to speak to me about? Rebecca had to move towards her in order to be able to hear her response over the boiling kettle, but stayed standing. Alex paused, seemingly unsure what she wanted to say, despite being the one to initiate their meeting. I wanted to let you know that I spoke to Phoebe, and she seems to really like the day centre. Maybe it was a good idea, at least for now while she finds her feet. Was that her admitting she'd been wrong? It wasn't an apology exactly, but it might be the best Rebecca could hope for, and with her professional hat on, she couldn't push for anything more. Glad it's turned out well for her. Me too. The kettle clicked off, and Rebecca took the opportunity to move away from the awkward silence that had fallen. Milk, 2 sugars? Well remembered. There was a hint of tease into Alex's voice. Should she have remembered after only making it once before? We're realising it may not be so bad here after all, Alex moved on, though she still wants to move out to her own place as soon as she's ready. Rebecca smiled to herself and tried not to overthink the we. I'm glad to hear that. Did this mean Alex would be content sticking around for the foreseeable future too? Maybe if they took the chance to get to know each other, Alex would see Rebecca wasn't so bad either, and her initial defensiveness would fade away, leaving Rebecca with the version of Alex she would like to get to know. She'd finished making the teas and carried them over to the table. It was true she was in no rush to go anywhere that evening, and it might be best to take advantage of Alex's unguarded state. She pulled out a chair opposite Alex and sat down to nurse her drink. How are you finding the area? Have you had a chance to explore much? Not much. That meeting was the first social group I've tried. They seem like a nice bunch. It would be good to hang out more and get to know the local community. I couldn't help glancing at the door in case anyone was listening or about to walk in on them. It wasn't like Alex had said anything too telling anyway. She seemed to have taken on board Rebecca's request to not mention their poly lifestyles at work. That was good to know. But what she really wanted to know was if she was included in that collective compliment. They are. I'm glad we've got something like that round here. It helps knowing you're not the only ones. Sure does. I'm glad I found you. It. A visible flush crept over Alex's cheeks as she stumbled over her phrasing. She didn't seem the blushing type, so it was particularly cute. You're at work. Rebecca pulled herself back from following that thread and raised her cup to hide her smile. Community is important. 100%. Not being close to my family, except B, of course. It's always been something I look for. Me too. Everyone needs somewhere to belong. They smiled at each other over the small table, finally on the same page. Surely there was no harm in them getting to know each other a bit more, and in her welcoming Alex into the local community. She could even pretend to herself that it was for Phoebe's sake. If Alex was happy there too, she wouldn't try to rush her sister out before she was ready. It was the right thing to do.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Kit, was this your first author reading or have you done it before?
Not really. I think I've done a couple of
No?
smaller ones.
Yeah, you never would have known. And I know this was the first time we've done a reading together, but I was very impressed and I'm very intrigued by the book. So An Independent Woman by Kit Meredith. You can see the link over there in the chat. And thank you. There's the cover. And thank you so much to Kit. All right. So I think that's everyone but me. So I think that means it's my turn to read. And I'll be reading from You Had Me at Merlot, which is my February release. And this is the story of Jamie Tolliver, who owns Bordeaux Nuts, which is a coffee bar by day, turns into a wine bar in the evening, my kind of place. And Jamie has developed a bit of a crush on a new customer who's come into Bordeaux Nuts. But what she doesn't know about Leighton is that Leighton works for Carrington's department store, which has its eye on taking out the whole block, including Bordeaux Nuts. And so she hasn't yet learned that information. In this particular scene, they're going to run into each other at an engagement party. And unfortunately, Jamie has also run into her awful ex-girlfriend, Laurel. And as the scene begins, she is extracting herself from a conversation with Laurel she needs to escape. If you'll excuse me, I see someone over there that I need to. She gestured absently across the room to a woman taking in the view from the gorgeous windows. She made a beeline for her, and at the last minute, eased her progress, imagining Laurel and her date had shifted their focus. The skyline in its clarity snagged her attention, however. Beautiful. Sparkling rosé, a server asked, offering a selection from her tray. Both Jamie and the woman at the window turned. Oh, I don't think I can say no, Jamie said, selecting a long-stemmed glass from the group. After that interaction, she deserved something pink. The woman also reached. Don't mind if I do. Cheers. She raised her glass to the woman's, remembered her manners, and met her gaze on the clink. Hold up. Her brain stuttered and started again. Her stomach went tight and fluttery. It's you. Oh my God, you're Bambi's mother. The woman blinked. I'm not, but I do know you. I'm just trying to place where. She wore a beautiful red dress that fell to mid-thigh, making her look like a celebrity. Her hair was gently curled and penned. She was breathtaking. Jamie's heart thudded in happy discovery. Her actual name hit. Leighton, you're Leighton, and I'm Jamie? The most beautiful smile blossomed on Leighton's face. Yes, you're Jamie from Bordeaux Nuts. Hi. She blinked several times as if trying to orient herself to Jamie in the wild. Wow, you look stunning. Thank you. That dress. Jamie looked down, warmed. It's new. A pause as they stared at each other happily. Probably like running into your teacher at the movie theater. No, I'm just used to you in a t-shirt and apron rather than a cocktail dress and heels. Leighton opened her mouth and closed it. When I said stunning, I meant it. Oh, a pause. Jamie twirled her hair in exaggerated fashion. Sweet of you. Leighton laughed, which was a fantastic sound, quiet and melodic. Not that you're not equally stunning in cotton. Bless you, Jamie said. She looked around. What are you doing here? Why did you think I was Bambi's mother? I don't have children. They'd asked the questions at about the same time and smiled to acknowledge the overlap. I'll go first, Leighton said. Jeremy is one of the first friends I made when I moved to New York years ago. Seems like our friends are getting engaged, Jamie said. Oh, what a small world. So Elise? Yep. Jamie nodded. We grew up together. Leighton sipped her pink bubbly with measured elegance, and Jamie tried to mask her captivation. You're a city kid? No accent? Oh, watch out. It slips in every once in a while. Just hang out with me some more. She'd said it with too much bravado, like some kind of woman with moves. She wasn't. They were likely never going to hang out again, but she could dream. Now I'm going to have to pay attention, Leighton said. Interestingly, that sentence hinted at continued interaction, and Jamie wouldn't mind that at all. But back to Bambi's mother, did you mean the actual cartoon deer, or is there a literal child you had me associated with? Jamie pinched the bridge of her nose, searching for a plausible explanation that wouldn't fully embarrass her in the middle of a really nice exchange. Here's the thing. My regulars and I sometimes have nicknames for the customers based on our initial impressions or the nature of their orders. Sometimes we learn their real names and the fake ones fade away. Sometimes they override their real names. Just depends. Layton's eyes went wide and her perfect lips pulled in amusement. Aha, and you named me Bambi's mother. Yeah. And because I know your actual name, we could lose that now. Unless it supersedes. It won't. Trust me. But Bambi's mother? Why in the world? There was no way around this. Jamie decided to dive in head first. You have these really pretty, luminous eyes. She gestured to her own, and these lashes that go with them. Wasn't a long leap. Layton nodded, turned, and faced the window as she tilted her flute into a sip. Were you checking me out the other day? What? Ha! Why would you say that? Ha! Again. Jamie realized her voice was too loud. Funny, but I mean, her words trailed off because, damn it, the Wicked Witch of the East, Laurel, was headed their way with a curious look on her face. I'm warning you now, Jamie said. The woman who will be here in 4 seconds is my awful ex-girlfriend, and she's probably going to make passive-aggressive comments in order to disparage me and elevate herself, and it's just this dance we do. Oh, she sounds lovely, Layton said, straightening and turning. Jamie leaned in, her voice low. She's not, I promise, but here we go, incoming. Jamie? Is this your date? Laurel said with an overabundance of enthusiasm. Jamie opened her mouth, only to have Layton beat her to the punch. Yes, her date, that's me, Layton Morrow, pleased to make your acquaintance. Laurel's plastered-on smile lost wattage. Layton had just greeted her with the serenity of someone dripping with both confidence and grace. She spoke like royalty, maybe a kind heiress. Laurel Kipling, Jamie and I go way back. How interesting. You're lucky. Laurel blinked and Layton smiled, completely unfazed by any of this. Wow. She threaded her fingers through Jamie's possessively, and the world went still. Jamie's body came instantly alive, electricity pinging off the scale. We were just taking in the view. Very romantic up here. She turned to Jamie, kissed her hand. Heat scorched its way up her arm. We need to come here for the weekend, Jamie. I am told that they have the most gorgeous view from the penthouse. A park view, strawberry shortcake that's not to be missed. She lifted her shoulder. I love robes and room service. They're wonderful, Laurel said. She'd always prided herself on being the prettiest girl in any room. She didn't love the competition, and Layton's presence had surely thrown off her game. My girlfriend is around here somewhere. I'll have to introduce you. She is a model working on a tire commercial this week. Tires. Wow, Layton said with an overly enthusiastic voice. Well, I suppose we all need them. Laurel looked from Jamie to Layton, her eyes like darts. Maybe we can all get together sometime. We'd love that, right, baby? Layton asked Jamie, who wasn't at all sure what planet she was on right now, but hoped she could live here forever. Layton was her pretend date, calling her baby and kissing her hand, and Laurel was here to see every minute of it. Should she buy a lottery ticket next? What had she done for the universe to bless her with this gift of a moment? She planned to relish every second of this exchange like juice from a ripe nectarine. And that's the end. I would like to invite all my friends to come back on screen and join me. We have a few minutes. I thought we could maybe snag a question, if that's okay.
That was great, Melissa. Can't wait to read it.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to February when it's out shortly. But you know, we're talking about following your heart today. So the question I have for each of you is, which character from the book that you just read has your heart? If you had to pick out one, and Nan, I'll jump to you first and let you answer the question.
Well, I think it's a little interesting because as I was writing, like they do in the movies, I was trying really hard to make Chelsea, my celebrity character, relatable and lovable. I didn't want her to have like this kind of frosty distance. And I think I was successful with that because now that it's come out and I've read some opinions on it, it seems like Fran, my other character, who was a total normie and I thought was completely lovable, is getting a little bit of a misunderstood vibe from some people. So I think that right now Fran has my heart, and I'm rooting for her maybe just this much more than Chelsea.
There you go. It's always interesting when you put the book out into the world and you see how people are interpreting what you had seen a certain way. But I think that's very common for me as well, to getting to kind of get those takes on it. Missouri Vaun, which character from your book has your heart?
I think Charlotte, because life keeps dealing her all these like blows, you know what I mean? These setbacks, these complications, whatever. But she's so hopeful and resilient, and she doesn't sort of lose her, I already said hopefulness, but she doesn't sort of lose her ambition for a better life for herself. So I don't know. She's an easy character to pull for.
There you go. Admirable qualities that we could all probably take a tip from her. Kit, what about you?
I'm actually going to pick one of my secondary characters,
All right.
Drew, who's one of Rebecca's existing partners. And I like the fact that they're not afraid to put themselves out there and reach out to people, unlike the others. They're much less guarded. And so much I'm actually making them the lead in my next book, kind of writing more about them now, so they're in my head.
That's great. They're sort of getting a promotion, in other words, getting their own romance. So everybody be on the lookout for that particular book. Anna, which character has your heart from your book?
I think it has to be Violet Unwin, who loves her beautiful costume shop, which she's inherited. Unwin's Emporium began in 1898, and she's a proud inheritor of this shop, and she loves it. And I love her that she loves it. And she's such a brave young woman. She hasn't known, she was adopted by her uncle, and she hasn't known much love, and yet she still has the ability to hope for love. And when she finds Phoebe, it's such a it's such a heartening thing. And so definitely Violet Unwin for me.
All right, we look forward to meeting Violet soon. That was a great characterization. And Gunn, what character from your book has your heart?
I thought it was going to be Liberty, because I've been in a few talent shows in my days on a much smaller scale. But it turned out that Palmer's past, with having her life ruined 7 years ago and trying to be brave and put herself out there in the world again, knowing it can all crash and burn just as easily again, especially when she's dealing with Liberty, who can be a little prickly.
Yeah.
And also I should have known, though, because I do often fall for the sort of brooding and tormented soul in my books.
Great answer. Yeah, sometimes we don't see those characters coming, and then all of a sudden they're our favorites, which is always fun. I think for me, I would go with Jamie, because the heart and soul of her business is her. People come into the cafe, they love the coffee, but they really do love Jamie, and she is the light of the place. But she's also fun in that she has so many awkward moments, and she's so relatable and how she makes her way in the world, that she's got this every girl persona to her, which I love to read a romance novel where everything is gorgeous and wonderful, but then you have a character who maybe isn't and is outside of that. And so she was a joy to write, and I hope everybody likes her once they get a chance to meet her. We are right at time, so we had a chance to squeeze in one question, but I want to invite our audience to come back for the rest of the bookathon. I believe up next, I think we have historical. And Missouri Vaun, you have double duty. You're sticking around, and you'll be with us for another 50 minutes. Is that correct?
Yep. Thank you for that. Yeah.
So please stick around and join us, and check out the books. That you can see the link in the chat. If not, Google will definitely deliver those books to you. And I want to thank my fellow panelists today. You were all wonderful, and I enjoyed your readings a great deal. And I would like to bid you all farewell. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.